World War Z and Russian minorities. Russian minorities are wildly overrepresented on Ukrainian battlefields as cannon fodder. In return for their blood they are rewarded with forced assimilation and lost autonomy. Many question their support of Z. The minority factor in Russian army is vastly underrated when discussing the course of Ukrainian war. Firstly, ethnic minorities are not so much a minority there. Judging from the casualty lists, minorities are wildly overrepresented on the battlefields as the cannon fodder. Thread. We don't have aggregated data for the entire Russian army, but we can get some idea of who fights in Ukraine from this list of wounded Russian soldiers lying in Rostov hospital. More than half are clearly Dagestani. Magomed. Muhammad, the most common name in the list of wounded. It makes total sense. As you see, almost all Russian regions with high fertility are either ethnic republics or ethnic autonomous okrugs. Caucasians and Siberian natives reproduce, providing a lot of draftable males. Plus they are mostly poor, so can be easily lured into the army. That's true both if we look at the country in general, and if we zoom into the regional level. Consider Astrakhan Oblast, region studied by social anthropologist at T.Education. It has many ethnic groups ordered into a complex racial hierarchy. It's 67.6% Russian and 14.8% Kazakh. Astrakhan Oblast officially confirmed 7 deaths in Ukraine. Armen Bev Alibatir of Timurin Jasagilov Risbekner Pisov Anwar Galeev Einar Namakov Alexander Bezusov. 6 Kazakhs, 1 Russian. Being only 14% of population, Kazakhs give 85% casualties. Russians give 14%, being 67%. Why? Well, the answer is obvious. In Astrakhan, Kazakhs stand low in racial hierarchy. It's mostly poor rural population, uneducated and without any real perspectives of social mobility. They are locked on the bottom of social ladder and of course are looked down upon by other ethnicities. I want to clarify, I don't say Kazakhs stand low in Russian racial hierarchy in general. They stay low in this specific region. Here they are considered bumpkins with no future, and other ethnicities including Turkic and Muslim avoid marrying them. That would be marrying down. Isn't it interesting that in Astrakhan, where Kazakhs are underprivileged, they, according to official sources, comprise almost all military casualties in Ukraine? Actually, it makes sense. Russian army is the army of poor and minorities. That can't be any other way. How do you get to the Russian army? Well, first you need to be drafted. Affluent people are selected out at this stage. People with social capital view military service as the fate of losers. So it's the poor and naive who don't know how, or why, to dodge who are drafted. Then you need to sign a contract. They'll be persuading, shaming, luring, seducing you into signing a contract. A person with social capital who accidentally got drafted will avoid it at all cost. Call his lawyers, human rights advocates, so they probably let him go. While signing the contract is usually voluntary, though not always, they heavily concentrate on rural bumpkins. First, it's easier to pressure them. They don't know their rights. Second, it's easier to bribe them with salary prospect. They don't have career anyway. Thirdly, they are disposable. Imagine kids of Moscow intelligentsia getting killed in Ukraine. That's a headache. Their families gonna call lawyers, media, human rights organizations, give interviews. Meanwhile, rural bumpkin moms will cry in the pillow and that's it. Amazing. That's why Russian army is increasingly turning into the army of minorities. Yes, it has always been the army of country folk, but in the past they were mostly ethnic Russian. Nowadays, however, there is not so much youth left in ethnic Russian countryside. They are so desperate for manpower that are even press-ganging the Central Asian immigrants. Technically, these guys could just refuse to sign anything and go. Recruiter would yell, curse, hit his fist on the table and that's it. He can't really do anything, but they don't know it. Recruiting gastabeaters is a sign of desperation. It's being done simply because it's easy to persuade them that they must enlist and threaten them with heavy consequences if they don't. There will be no consequences. They have legal rights. They just don't know it. My recommendations to encourage defection and sabotage should be considered in this context. Very soon Russian army will be filled by a number of people who don't share Russian imperial mythos and got there absolutely accidentally. Their motivation will be very, very low. The same was true in World War II. These cases were not published to maintain the illusion about the unity of Soviet people, but in fact morale of Central Asian troops was very low and they were defecting to Germans en masse, much more than Russians. They didn't see it as their war. That makes sense. Imagine you are a rural Uzbek. Do you view yourself as Russian? Of course not. Do you believe in communism? Well, you have to perform all the rituals because authorities demand it, but it's not very much interiorized. I like this photo of decolonization in Uzbekistan. NB, I'm telling about regular minorities and not about Chechens. Chechnya is different. Chechnya is more a vassal kingdom in personal union with Russia, and Chechen troops play more an NKVD than regular army role. They are to check and control, not to fight. Strelkov confirms it. Kadyrov had to personally deny that Chechens don't fight. I often read as Chechen fighters are accused in inaction, in going only in a second or third echelon, or in just taking recordings with civilians and skipping the real fights, and posted a real fight footage. Doesn't look too persuasive, to be honest. By his posture and muscles, the dead is probably dead for several hours. Most probably a fresh and clean Chechen came there much later to take a footage of how Chechens really fight so Kadyrov can post it in Telegram. Funny fact, a Donbas levy field commander Khodorkovsky accused Chechens in skipping the real fights, so Kadyrov's henchman Delimkanov talked with him. Of course Khodorkovsky confirmed Chechens absolutely do fight and said Ahmad Sila on camera. Kadyrov's troops are more like NKVD.
Еще более ослабленными, чем даже мы. Приезжают ребята упакованные, красивые, бородатые, как с иголочки. Я смотрю на это все, легко бронированная техника. Никаких там средств поддержки нет. Никакой там предварительной обработки чего-либо. Обычные люди, которые жили мирной жизнью, на них потратили какие-то деньги, экипировали их и предложили им, так сказать, поучаствовать в войне.
Как ты видишь сегодняшнюю обстановку на фронте, и где мы сейчас под Мариуполем находятся наши бойцы Чеченской Республики под руководством главы Чеченской Республики Рамзана Ахматовича? Ты говорил, что там некоторые не готовы, там некоторые это. Как ты видишь сегодня картину?
Нам уже приходилось взаимодействовать с братьями из Чечни в 2014 году, когда они добровольцами к нам приезжали. По этому поводу мы даже встречались, общались, выстраивали какую-то общую линию. Сейчас я скажу так, что мы сейчас столкнулись с профессионалами, с одной стороны. То, что профессионалы, скажем, они набраны из разных органов, из разных подразделений, мы взаимодействуем с ними, вот мы буквально плечом к плечу сейчас с ними взаимодействуем, то мы понимаем, что...
То есть с нами?
С ними, с вами, да. С вами. Мы понимаем, что... Первая моя ремарка была, что, во-первых, мужики выглядят круто, и хотелось бы, чтобы они так и круто и действовали. Вот сейчас я понимаю, что если мы так и дальше будем продолжать, то успех неминуем. Потому что сюда пришли люди, которые знают свое дело, и я думаю, что можно смело сказать: Ахмат Сила.
Ахмат Сила!
There's a real fighting Chechen force, not on Russian side though. It is a Sheikh Mansour battalion composed from Ichkeria emigres and fighting for Ukraine. Notice the difference with Kadyrov's footages. These are real soldiers, not PR and security troops of Kadyrov.
Аллаху Акбар! Тихо, Касик. У тебя есть разрывной снаряд?
Разрывной? Да.
Да.
Куда?
Не, миномет снаряд.
Ну, это?
Миномет.
Миномет нет.
السينك ورالتسن الله يلوم شدوي الله أكبر على غيتان ديل موستخدوي الله أكبر قال شدو ديل لوم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله روسي شوينا كابوت ماغن
Z invasion is when non-Chechen minorities fight and die for the Russian ethno-nationalist project. What do they get in return? Well, assimilation. Notice this poster. It's like I'm Welsh but today we're all English. For your sacrifice you're allowed to abandon your identity. From the minority perspective, Z invasion looks like a worst trade deal in the history of trade deals ever. They'll bear disproportionate burden of war, taking a huge number of casualties. If Z invasion succeeds, they'll get forced assimilation and will be losing their autonomy. Z invasion is largely the Russian ethno-nationalism run amok. If allowed to succeed in Ukraine, it will obviously choose Russian minorities as the next target. That's just too predictable. Why would they need to support it? That's the question many are asking today. End of thread.